In the near future, Earth is devastated by overpopulation and climate change. An organization called the Uniting Ranger Corps is established to evacuate the planet, relocating humanity to a space colony named Nova Prime. With humans now vulnerable, an alien race known as the Skrull sends vicious predators called Ursas to invade. These blind creatures can hunt humans by sensing the pheromones they release when frightened. The Rangers fight the Ursas with blades, and Prime Commander Cypher becomes a hero by learning to suppress his fear, a technique called ghosting, which makes him invisible to the Ursas. Years after the war, Cypher's son Kitai is a cadet at the Ranger Academy, aspiring to be like his father. Despite his high test scores, Kitai struggles in the field and doesn't get the promotion he desires. When Cypher returns home from a mission, Kitai confesses his failure. Cypher, always stoic and cold, simply remarks that Kitai must not have been ready. Cypher's demeanor remains militaristic even with his family, demanding Kitai call him sir and issuing orders at the dinner table. After dinner, Cypher gives his wife, Faya, a gift from his mission and informs her that he will soon leave for Ifado to train cadets. However, he plans to retire and join her in the administrative department afterward. Faya is relieved but urges him to spend more time with Kitai, who needs a father, not a commanding officer. She believes Kitai's insecurities stem from blaming himself for his sister Senshi's death and tries to connect with him by reading her favorite book, Moby Dick. Considering Faya's advice, Cypher tells Kitai he will take him to Ifado. Before their departure, Kitai sees a ranger with an amputated leg thanking Cypher for saving him during the Ursus War. Despite Cypher's humility, the ranger insists on saluting him, recognizing him as a hero. During the journey, Kitai tries to bond with Cypher by mentioning he's reading Moby Dick, but Cypher's responses are curt and distant. Cypher advises Kitai to sleep for the trip, but Kitai, curious, explores the ship once Cypher is asleep. He stumbles upon a restricted area, but is allowed in when the guards recognize him as Cypher's son. Inside, he discovers they are transporting an Ursa to teach the cadets how to ghost. The ranger dares Kitai to test his emotional control by touching the Ursa's shell. As Kitai approaches, he has flashbacks of the night his sister died. An Ursa had attacked their home and Senshi had hidden Kitai in a glass enclosure to mask his scent. Just as Kitai is about to touch the shell, the Ursa senses his fear and roars, causing him to back away. Meanwhile, Cypher awakens, sensing danger. Using his ring against the ship's wall, he confirms the threat and orders the Rangers to be on high alert. He instructs Kitai to put on his life suit and strap in, then heads to the cockpit to inform the pilots of an approaching asteroid storm. Before they can change course, the ship is struck by asteroids, losing an engine. Cypher directs the pilots to enter the nearest wormhole, leading them to safety, but they emerge near Earth, a forbidden zone due to its dangers. With the ship heavily damaged, the pilots decide to make an emergency landing. As they descend, the ship shakes violently, causing Kitai to panic. Cypher helps him calm down with deep breaths. The ship begins to break apart, and Cypher is swept away by the wind as Kitai loses consciousness. When Kitai wakes up, he discovers the crashed ship and finds that the other Rangers are dead. He locates Cypher, who is alive but injured, and stays by his side until he regains consciousness. Kitai informs Cypher that the ship's tail section, along with the Ursa, is missing. Cypher directs Kitai to the cockpit to find the emergency beacon, only to discover it's broken. Kitai then puts Cypher on a stretcher and takes him to the ship's main computer. Cypher checks the inventory and confirms there is another beacon in the tail section, which is about 100 kilometers away. With both legs injured, Cypher gives Kitai the mission to retrieve the beacon, providing him with a blade and 6 vials of air filtration inhalers to help him breathe in Earth's hostile environment. Cypher also informs Kitai that his life suit has a backpack of cameras, allowing Cypher to see everything Kitai sees. Cypher warns Kitai that everything on Earth has evolved to kill humans. Kitai recalls witnessing his sister being killed by an Ursa and asks Cypher about the Ursa they were transporting. Cypher assumes it died in the crash but advises caution. After taking an inhaler, Kitai leaves the ship, nervous about the bodies around him. Cypher calms him down, reminding him to focus on the moment to conquer his fears. Kitai begins his journey and encounters many animals he's never seen before. While climbing a cliff, Kitai is startled by a spider on his hand. Upon reaching the top, he sees birds flying and cattle grazing on the plains, a stunning view for someone who has always lived in space. At that moment, Cypher releases probes to locate the Ursa and reminds Kitai that nighttime temperatures drop drastically. To survive, Kitai must find one of the many hot spots before dark. Cypher scans his injuries and confirms his leg bones are broken. He considers taking medicine for the pain but refrains because it might impair his vision, recalling a time when he was cold towards his daughter Senshi's enthusiasm over finding an original copy of Moby Dick. Moments later, Kitai's suit turns black, indicating a nearby life form. A large gaboon emerges, and despite Cypher's advice to stay still, Kitai throws a rock, provoking a group of baboons to attack. Kitai runs toward the nearest river, guided by Cypher, and crosses it to escape. Despite the baboons no longer following, Kitai continues running, nervous and scared, until Cypher calms him down. Cypher then detects toxins in Kitai's bloodstream. Kitai finds a leech on his hand, removes it, and injects the antidote, falling unconscious in the process. A few hours later, as the temperature drops, Cypher wakes Kitai and urges him to find a hot spot 10 kilometers away. Kitai runs as fast as he can while Cypher endures a painful arterial shot to treat his leg, reflecting on Senshi's 19th birthday, which he watched via screen due to a mission. He recalls her asking him to blow out the candles, which younger Kitai ended up doing for him. Upon reaching the hot spot, Kitai discovers 2 inhalers are broken but lies to his dad, claiming he has them all. Cypher notices a reaction on the screen that suggests lying but doesn't press further. Kitai hides under a tree as it starts to rain and asks his dad how he learned to ghost during the war. Cypher recounts an encounter where an Ursa stabbed him, and during their struggle in a river, he became invisible to the Ursa by accepting his death, realizing that fear is not real but a product of thoughts about the future. The next morning, Cypher sends Kitai to a waterfall where the probes have detected something interesting. On his way to the falls, Kitai encounters a pile of dead monkeys, a sign of a greater danger. When he reaches the falls, Cypher makes him check his inventory again, and Kitai tries to lie about the inhalers. Cypher calls out his lie, calculating that Kitai won't be able to complete the mission without them, and orders him to abort. Kitai, haunted by the memory of Senshi's death, refuses to abandon his father, accusing Cypher of being a coward for not being there to protect the family during the Ursa attack. Ignoring Cypher's orders, Kitai jumps off the falls using his suit to glide through the air. A huge condor appears and chases him. Kitai tries to hide behind the waterfalls, but the condor attacks, causing him to fall unconscious. He wakes up in the condor's nest with its chicks. As he tries to leave quietly, several lions attack the nest. The condor defends the chicks, but Kitai is forced to fight. Instead of killing the lions, he cuts a hole in the ground, making one fall. After the lions leave, Kitai sees the condor mourning its dead chicks. Kitai discovers his communicator is broken and continues his journey through the forest, hiding in a cave to escape the cold. Inside, he finds caveman drawings and narrowly avoids dangerous serpents. He calculates his remaining distance and inventory, realizing his chances are slim but deciding to press on. The next morning, Kitai notices the condor following him and runs away, using his last inhaler. He builds a raft to sail down the river and dreams of Senshi, who reassures him that saving himself was the right choice. She believes Cypher blames himself for her death. Kitai tries to recite Moby Dick to her, but is abruptly awakened when the raft reaches land. With the temperature dropping, he rushes to find a hot spot but collapses as the surrounding plants freeze. He wakes up to find the condor has died on top of him, keeping him warm through the night. Grateful, Kitai continues his journey, inspired by finding a piece of the ship. He finally reaches the ship's tail, obtaining more inhalers and a new blade. He discovers the Ursa's shell, confirming the monster is on the loose. Back on the ship, Cypher dreams of young Kitai handing him his blade, but is woken by Kitai's voice. Kitai has found a communicator in the beacon but can't hear Cypher because he's in a black zone. Despite his frustration, Kitai remembers his father's advice, calms himself, and realizes climbing the neighboring volcano will allow him to activate the beacon without interference. On his way to the volcano, Kitai encounters the body of a ranger deliberately left there with the Ursa nearby to trigger his pheromones and scare him. Determined, Kitai tries to ignore it and continues until he reaches the base of the volcano. There he attempts to activate the beacon again but fails. Meanwhile, Cypher notices the Ursa on the scanner and hopes Kitai acts quickly before it finds him. Entering a cave to find a route to the volcano's summit, Kitai unexpectedly comes face to face with the Ursa waiting for him. The monster attacks, but Kitai manages to trap it under a pile of rocks. As Kitai runs, the Ursa frees itself and gives chase. Kitai decides to hide in a pool of water, buying himself some time. Back on the ship, the computer malfunctions, causing Cypher to lose access to medical treatment and begin losing consciousness. Meanwhile, Kitai swims toward a light source that leads him to a pit. Climbing the pit, the Ursa ambushes him again, grabbing his foot. Kitai kicks it off and reaches the top, where he emerges outside. Attempting once more to activate the beacon, Kitai is interrupted by the Ursa, which attacks him and knocks the beacon away. In pain, Kitai recalls memories of Senshi protecting him and his father's advice, helping him concentrate and achieve costing, making himself invisible to the Ursa. Taking advantage of the creature's confusion, Kitai attacks and eventually kills it with precise strikes witnessed by Cypher before he loses consciousness. Afterward, Kitai successfully activates the beacon, and a few hours later, the Rangers arrive to rescue them both. Kitai, worried about his father's condition, checks on him and confirms that Cypher is okay. Despite his injuries, Cypher forces himself to stand and salute his son in recognition of his bravery. Moved by emotion, Kitai runs to hug his father, expressing his desire to work alongside his mother for the first time. Cypher reciprocates the hug and reveals his own wish to retire, marking a rare moment of familial connection and understanding between them. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.